East Texas, where I grew up, we always talked about that we're no more than 10 days from a drought, because I grew up in sugar sand. The water runs straight through it.
1985, cotton's worth about 65, 70 cents a pound. In 1986, from July to August, cotton went from 75 cents a pound to 25 cents a pound. The next year, it was 75 cents a pound. And it was a dry year.
Which agriculture is just a daily exercise in contingency planning. So early in the drought, you start thinking, okay, well, I'll start sniffing around, I'll find some hay, but I'm not going to buy any yet. As you get deeper into the drought and hope begins to fade for you a little bit, then you start having to look harder for hay, because all the people that bought hay early bought all the close, good hay up.
Long term, as we keep talking about the least number of mother cows since World War II, short cow herd, not building the cow herd back like we normally would have. We're 14 years into a 10 to 12 year cycle, and it's not. This isn't helping.
No, I mean.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fenceline, episode 6. Always my great friend and co-host, Dr. Dusty Abney. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to have you in downtown McKinney. Brad Good, one stoplight town. You know what, Brad, great friend. I promote a lot of his music on our show. We've got some other people we're going to be promoting as well. But a common theme in his songs, you know, like there's no rain through the screen door in this song, praying for rain. And I told him, Brad, there's a lot of looking for rain in your music. You know, I was like, well, when you grew up in southwestern Oklahoma and you're a dryland wheat farmer, rain's a pretty big deal. So it's a common theme in Brad's music, and it's a common theme in agriculture. Talked about the importance of rain in some of our earlier episodes. And as we're heading into summer, I know this week I'm headed to Montana to go see my friends at the Matador, and they're in a bit of a drought. So I thought a great time as we're getting here in the heat of summer to talk about droughts, how that affects all the food supply and really every phase of agriculture, not just livestock production, but all phases of agriculture.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of our folks that listen that aren't really engaged in agriculture to the level that you and I are, they only know when it's a drought when they can't water their yard, or it's a really bad drought. And I don't mean to make a lot of that. A lot of people really enjoy their yard, but and then it's a really bad drought if they can't wash their car. But agriculture literally lives and dies by whether or not it rains. There are mental health aspects to that. There are profitability aspects to that. There are fortunes made and lost depending on how much and where it rains. And it says in a really good book that it rains on the just and the unjust. And we have to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
100%.
But when you told a story on one of the first episodes about, rainfall and its importance to your family.
Yeah, what it made. Didn't the other 21 kids, only class of 22 kids there in Coleman, Oklahoma, the other 21 kids, well, some of those kids, it mattered, but for the other 21, it was not as significant that it was raining the last week of August as it was to me. And it affects people, affects their livelihoods. You really can do about. Now, we used to irrigate peanuts a lot, and I've pumped a lot of water. And pumping water helps, but there is nothing like, I'd take a half inch of rain from the Lord over an inch and a half of pumped water. What natural rainfall does for a crop is just unbelievable. They just perk up and go. Irrigation helps, but it's nothing. So,
well, there's traces of nitrogen in rain, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, especially if there's lightning involved with a thunderstorm. That's when the nitrogen levels go up in the rainfall. But yeah, it's super important, and it affects people. So we were the only people in southern Oklahoma praying 4 hurricanes in August.
Well, I used to do a lot of producer meetings where I would talk to ranchers, and we'd be in a drought year, and I'd be in Oklahoma, or I'd be in further in Central Texas, and I would say, I appreciate that you want it to rain, and you're welcome to pray for rain, but my customers on the Gulf Coast would appreciate you not praying a hurricane on shore. So they can get 60 inches of rain, which happened to a couple of my customers, get 60 inches of rain in 2 days and a 22-foot storm surge. So the guy over by west of Austin at Burnett could get 3 inches of rain.
Well, that we felt bad for them on those deals, but we felt really good to get 4 inches of rain on a peanut crop. So it was impactful. Now, several years ago, my family and I, we bought a boat, a little runaround ski boat, and we have nicknamed that thing the Rainmaker. We have inordinate ability to show up somewhere with our boat with zero rain in the forecast and get a rain. As a matter of fact, going to Lake Murray, Oklahoma, we have about a 80% track record if we're there for 3 days of getting rain. And it gets about late July and August. And Joe Poquet up there at Noble Ranches, he'll text me and say, "We sure wish you'd bring your boat up here."
What you need, Matt, is a side hustle.
If you have a drought, we're available. We're available.
I don't see you doing a whole lot between 2 and 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's why I need to open a donut shop.
Yeah.
We were in wheat harvest one year, and a guy that worked for us told my mom, said, "You ought to open a donut shop, Sonia." She said, "Why on God's green earth would I open a donut shop?" He said, "You're not doing much else between midnight and 5 o'clock. Might as well make donuts."
Just laying around.
Yeah, just laying in bed those 5 hours a day, wasting away. But
we want to talk about the physical aspects, but I really think it's important for those folks outside agriculture who we hope we're really speaking to here.
Yeah.
And we've got plenty of people that listen to our podcast and watch it that are in ag because they're buddies of ours and they want to catch us making a mistake and giggle at us and point and that kind of thing. And we're happy to have them. But we really want to reach those folks that want to know more about where their food comes from. And if you're disconnected from ag, which too many people are these days, and that's why we started this, it's easy to overlook the mental health aspects of this. And so if you're a cattle producer, which is near and dear to both of our hearts, you've got cattle, I've got family with cattle, I've got my whole doctorate around cattle. And
your day job depends on cattle.
120%. Yeah. And so I don't think people really grasp the care that people have for their animals, the love they have for their animals. Mm-hmm. And when those animals suffer, the mental drag that can have on a producer and their family, his or her family. And so in East Texas, where I grew up, we always talked about that we're no more than 10 days from a drought because I grew up in sugar sand. The water runs straight through it. If it doesn't rain every 10 days, we get an average of 44, 46 inches of rain down there. And our country's made for that.
Yeah, we used to say we're 10 days from a drought, 10 hours from a flood.
Yeah. And so, but if you have a set of cattle and you've experienced this personally, you have a set of cattle that you've built over time, that you like the genetics.
Years, decades.
You're emotionally invested
in pruning.
In
and then sometimes even within that set of cows, there's kind of the special ones.
Yeah.
A lot of people admit this, but there's some that we should cull these things and let them go be part of the food supply, but we just let them earn their place and we bury them.
There's a couple of them, though. My brother, if he's listening to this, he'll remember good old cow number 108, Trey. He used to feed her range cubes out of his hand until she calved as a heifer, and then she lost her flipping mind.
They will do that.
And
there are reasons we eat them.
We need a storytelling session one time when we do this, but we can talk about that another time. But she loaded all of us on the back of a pickup, and we tried to tag her first calf, and then loaded herself on the back of the pickup with us.
From pet to predator.
She got a little vicious. So nobody was too heartbroken when it was time to call her. But for the most part, you're responsible for those animals. You're responsible for their well-being. People take that very, very, very personal. And when rain grows the grass, when it puts water in the stock tanks, for those of you that don't live in Texas, a stock tank is like a pond, except it's in Texas. I think that's tied back to the oil industry, why we call those tanks instead of pond. That's a dirt depression that water fills up. But when your grass burns up, not from a fire, but when the sun burns your grass up, you graze down what's left. Your cattle are standing there, and we'll talk about good old 2011 when they're standing there in a literal dirt patch that was usually a green, verdant paradise for cattle on a normal year. And you have to stand there and watch that happen. And you've got to decide, I know you've got some stories about trading hay. Do I buy hay in? Do I try to feed these cattle a little bit of grain or something like that? Do I cull hard? Do I sell all of them?
What, Wayne, a emotional decision of being attached to these cattle, not from because you like them, but from what you do, but years of breeding to get this, because you can't go replace it. You can't go to the cow store and get I got rid of my iPhone 17. I need another iPhone 17. They don't work like that.
No, especially now.
So you can't just go get another one, look just like her.
What's a cow worth today? You went to auction and bought a cow?
Bred cow bring $3,500, $4,000 right now, a good cow. And a pair cow bring $4,500 to $5,000. And there's some cattle out there bringing $6,000, $8,000 for pairs.
On a drought year, on a percentage basis, deep into the drought year, how much value do those cows lose?
50%.
Yeah. So a cow that's worth $4,000 today.
Well, she's going to go from what her breeding value is to what her hamburger value is. And that hamburger value is going to go down because there's a whole lot more of them there.
Yeah, because they're all going to market.
You can see, I've seen those cows go down half.
So when you're talking about weighing those emotional and financial decisions together, you're talking about, if I keep these animals, I've got to haul hay in. And because hay is harder to find, the law of supply and demand works really well on hay. If you have a good hay year, people will just damn near pay you to take hay. But you have a drought year, you're hauling hay from 5, 6, 7 states away. And generally, that's going to be on a year when diesel's not cheap.
Which is directly related to diesel prices.
Yeah.
And so the volatility of these markets, so it doesn't just relate to cattle. So I was researching, because cotton's one of the things I want to talk about in the future. We had a cotton gin as a kid. I was looking at the historical cotton prices, and one thing that stuck out to me is in 1985, years or give or take, right, a year or two. 1985, cotton's worth about 65, 70 cents a pound. In 1986, from July to August, cotton went from 75 cents a pound to 25 cents a pound. The next year, it was 75 cents a pound. And it was a dry year. They had a really wet year. Cotton produced like crazy. There's an overabundance of cotton. And so imagine whatever it is you do for a living. So if you make $100,000 a year for a round number, let's pretend like you made $100,000 this year. But next year, due to rainfall, abundance over lack of, your income is going to $25,000. And then next year, your income might go to $125,000. Could that maybe help the consumer
with no ability to predict when that's going to happen?
No control. And oh, by the way, you don't get to quit and go get another job. You can't. You're tied to that job. You
got $500,000 worth of equipment out there. You got your land.
You can't just go choose to do something else. So absolutely. And it's, and so talk about that. We're going to show some drought maps. The one I want to show that's kind of near and dear to me is 2009. So we look at I want to go kind of historically. We got this is July of 2009.
Now, you got to orient people to this map. This is the U.S. Drought Monitor. This is put out by the good people at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, where the big N stands for knowledge. I love you guys, Nebraska. I'm picking at you. They put this out weekly. It's for the entire United States. And some of these you'll see outlying islands. You see Alaska, Hawaii. Pay attention on these. Those of you getting to watch the podcast, how often Hawaii's in a drought. That might shock some of you. But if the map is white, if there's no color to the map, that means that you've got normal rainfall, soil moisture, etc. As you go to yellow, tan, brown, red, and deep red, on this particular map, you'll see the intensity legend in there. The darker that color gets, the more red that color gets, the more intense the drought is. So for people that aren't used to looking at this, you can Google this map. They update it every week. It's got a great historical archive. It's fascinating to flip through these.
Aggregated data. So we have a group of weather stations called Mesonet, and they have they're sometimes multiple. Every county in America has one. Most counties have multiples, and they're tied in digitally to record the data. daily temperatures, highs and lows, rainfalls, and then most of them have soil probes where they can do soil moisture data in that station. So that's where all this great information is coming from. So in April of 2009, I quit a really good job selling construction equipment. So I was going to start selling meat at the farmer's market, and things weren't just really blowing up for me. But down in where my wife's family's from, down there just outside of Houston, in the Brenham family, they're in the heart of that red, dark red. But look up here in Oklahoma, we're a little dry there in southern Oklahoma. North Texas, wet, slightly dry in southern Oklahoma. But look over in Arkansas, it's beautiful wet. Well, due to my equipment background, I had a network of people in the hay business, and I started trucking hay from southern Oklahoma and Arkansas down into that dark red area. And at one time I had 5 trucks just running nonstop hauling hay.
People may not know that there are people that just make hay that don't have cattle,
right? They
don't
just
have any livestock.
Hay. Correct.
They just make hay.
And there were people in Arkansas who had cows, but they had so much grass, the cows couldn't eat it all. They were cutting and baling hay. Now at that time, diesel was sub $2. So we were running trucks from southeastern Oklahoma and Arkansas down to south central Texas, picking up steel, coming back to Madill, Oklahoma, and then repeat. So we're running a circle. But we were doing that, and those guys they were hauling that hay for about $1.85 a mile for me. Today, it would cost me $4.50 to $5 a mile to get that hay hauled today with fuel where it's at. So that would, if I had to play that game again today, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And now would be real interesting, I don't know, now is the next one 2011? So I want to show you what happened from 2009.
By the way, we thought we were in a bad drought in 2009, right?
Yeah, we thought we were bad.
Flip back real quick, Taylor, please, sir. So just for the people that can't see the map, basically the southern tier of Texas from, let's say, that's about Austin over to the Big Bend and all the way to the Mexico border.
Down to McAllen, over to Houston.
Is in the D4 exceptional darkest red drought.
Up to Waco.
But then as you get further north, you get into the lighter colors. And then, like Matt said, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, they got plenty of rain up there. And those are big hay-making states. So we've got a place to go buy some hay from. So we thought that was a bad drought.
Yeah, we thought about it. Then just 2 years later, I learned a lesson. When the Lord giveth, the Lord can take away. Had I stockpiled and held all that hay up here, I would have been ready for 2011. So in 2011, we were trucking hay from Kansas, Missouri, same trucks running, hauling hay in. And I mean, my dad and I we were partners then. We're back partners now. The guys down the road, we bought a set of mother cows from a guy who had drought insurance. We bought a set of mother cows, and we had a place that we had grass. We could take those cows. But back to your point, those cows got cheap. We bought those cows. Boy, I would love to buy me a set of $1,200 4-year-old cows bred with a calf on the side of them.
You probably didn't think they were that cheap at the time. They may have been a good buy.
At the time, they were a good buy, but if we wouldn't have had, my dad had that feed mill, and we could produce some cheap hay. My cattle partners had a feedlot, had ability to produce a cheap feed, and we had some grass places that hadn't anything on them. That was the only way those cows were a deal at $1,200 a head for a bred cow with a calf on her side. And but that just shows you never know. You never know what the future going to hold. But as I've seen now, the way when we have these big years with lots and lots and lots of hay, it might be a good idea to put that up or stockpile some forage. Yeah. You know, as we get into talking about regenerative agriculture and rotational grazing and some of the techniques where the taller we let these plants grow, the deeper the roots get. My dad, he liked to keep his pastures looking, about like his table, keep
a golf course,
keep them grazed down really good. Well, it's a direct relationship of depth of root to height of forage. So as we really like that take half, leave half, kind of move those cattle around, keep those roots deep, protect that soil mindset. But we in a drought, that's kind of all out the window.
And 2011 is, for Texas, the worst single-year drought in recorded history for us. And we've got a different map up on the screen right now, but that map remember that the D4 is the darkest color red. Effectively, the entire state of Texas and a good 75% of Oklahoma and at least a third of New Mexico are that deepest, darkest red.
Yeah.
We didn't get, it stopped raining in about January of 2011 and didn't rain again until in any big way. I mean, somebody got a quarter inch somewhere, but all that did was give you hope you shouldn't have had. Until about February of 2012, it started raining again. And when you look at that map, what I noticed there is to try to find a white spot that might have some hay. The closest thing to the west is Colorado. They don't have any hay to sell. So you got to get back into Mississippi and the western part of Alabama. And by the way, the southeast United States was in a drought at this time too. So droughts can be national, they can be regional, they vary in intensity. A drought in the Texas Panhandle is bad, but they're used to that up there. And this
what is a drought in the Panhandle? Is that 12 inches instead of 17 inches? What's a drought?
It probably looks about like that, or it may be 6 inches.
For sure.
But you look at the Texas Panhandle versus where I'm from in East Texas. The Texas Panhandle, they have windmills, they have a lot of underground water sources. They rely less on above ground stock tanks. Their forages take drought better. You come back east I-35 and we're in more subtropical forages that need rain more regularly.
50 inches of rain a year over in East Texas, 36 here where we're at in McKinney.
Closer you get to the coast, the more rain you get. More surface storage for water because you have the opportunity to capture more surface water because of runoff with rain. So a drought in a part of the country that's not prepared for drought culturally can be really devastating.
So I have places in Oklahoma that only have surface water. They don't have rural water. That's a water meter. They don't have a water line. The only water is what we capture and hold in a pond or a tank, as we like to say in this part of the country. That's the only water we have. And so we talk about hauling hay, hauling feed to cattle. Well, that's a pretty big deal. When you start hauling water to cattle, it gets expensive to hold on to 108 that you love or hate.
How much does water weigh a gallon?
8.2 pounds per gallon.
And a cow will drink
30 gallons in a drought condition. Hot, she's going to drink 30 gallons a day
if she can get it.
And so you're going to
think about that from a scale standpoint. If you got 100 cows, that's 3,000 gallons of water. That's not that much smaller than a gasoline tanker you see filling up the gas station at your local. And you got to do that a day,
every day.
And you got to have a pump that also runs on gasoline, which is not cheap at that time of year. And you got to have time to fill up that trailer.
Yeah,
haul it out there. Don't turn it over. All the things that go
blow a tire because you're hauling a heavy load
and a hot day and all the stuff that goes with it.
Tanks that you don't own. I mean, you have to go invest in some tank to haul water.
You might have had one left over from the last drought 10 years ago, but it needs new tires.
Or you rinse your liquid fertilizer tank out real good and hope you don't kill your cows.
I saw that happen.
3200 and grazing
nitrogen toxicity in those cattle.
Seen it. Yeah. So all those things, risk reward measurement right there.
And by the time you get to hauling water, when you're early in the drought, and you're having to start thinking about buying hay, your grass is getting short. You're looking ahead. If you're somebody who's at least a little bit progressive, and you start contingency planning, which agriculture is just a daily exercise in contingency planning, right? And so early in the drought, you start thinking, okay, well, I'll start sniffing around. I'll find some hay, but I'm not going to buy any yet because if it rains, then I won't need this hay, and I've invested money that I didn't need to invest, and I won't be able to recoup my money back out of it because you've got all that transport cost in that hay, which is the biggest cost in hay, really, or any kind of feed like that. So as you get deeper into the drought and hope begins to fade for you a little bit, then you start having to look harder for hay because all the people that bought hay early bought all the close, good hay up. So one of my favorite customers down at Crockett was an Angus breeder, and I thought the world of that old man, and he called me and he said, we got to talk about this drought. So I sat across from him at his kitchen table, and he said, I found some rice straw in Louisiana that I can get bought really cheap. And so I fired up my computer, and I knew what the answer was going to be, but I wanted him to watch me do it.
Styrofoam.
Fired up my computer, and rice straw, any kind of crop residue, and we feed a lot of crop residue, but any kind of crop residue for a grain The whole purpose of that stalk is to hold the head of grain up. And as we have selected for more and more higher harvest weights of the grain, you have to have a more lignified, more woody stalk to hold that up so it doesn't just fall over and you can't harvest it. And so with rice, what you end up with is a straw. It's highly lignified, got a lot of silica to it.
There's a reason we call it wheat straw, rice straw.
Yeah. Wheat straw rice straw makes wheat straw look like the best alfalfa hay you've ever fed. Rice straw is really terrible stuff. And so he had a test on it, and I sat down with him and I went through the math with him, and I said, all right, sir, all we've got to do is get 44 pounds of dry matter of this wheat straw into these cows per head per day. And he said, well, Dusty, how are we going to do that? And I said, with a pocket knife and a pitchfork, because they won't eat it.
Yeah, it's impossible. A big old Holstein cow can't even come close to doing that much dry matter.
And when it's low quality hay like that, they won't eat enough of it. So that's the calculus as you get into a drought. And when you get to that point that you're talking about where you're starting to have to physically haul water every day, let's talk about the mental health aspects of this for just a minute. I want you folks to think about the worst time you've had in your life when it just feels like everything's piled on your head and you're not getting a break. Your kids are doing bad in school, or you were doing bad in school, or whatever it may have been, and you just can't catch up. That's what that feels like. But it feels like that for your family and for your livelihood. And there's another component in there of these animals that you forswore to take care of. And if you don't think that cattlemen and folks that raise pigs and chickens or whatever livestock they raise don't love those animals, you don't know those folks. We need to talk about that in a future episode probably. But think about the emotional strain that those folks are under waiting for it to rain. I'm sure you've wanted it to rain for your garden. I'm sure you've wanted it to rain for your yard.
You've wanted it to not rain for your daughter's wedding.
I bet you cussed it when you just got your car washed. This episode is about putting you in the boots of that farmer, that rancher, and helping you understand why suicide rates, which is not a fun thing to talk about, I know. I would guess that suicide rates for farmers and ranchers are up there with our veterans, not quite as high, but close to our veterans and close to our law enforcement officers. So when you see those statistics in the future and you wonder about why that is that way, it's this roller coaster that Matt's talking about riding on. It's chicken or feathers, as some people like to say. Sometimes you get to eat chicken and sometimes you get to eat feathers. So you don't know when this is going to start and when it's going to stop. And when we look historically, like we're looking at 2011 here, we started to wonder in a very logical fashion if it was ever going to rain again.
Yeah, and 2012 wasn't a dream. I mean, 2012, it started rainbow. It was a recovery year.
Well, and it rained too much for a lot of folks. You had no ground cover left.
Yeah, you could just say, so you had, your root system was gone. Yeah. Your forage base was gone.
A lot of erosion.
Yeah.
And a lot of weeds. The grass canopy was gone. The amount of weeds that I saw pop up in 2012 and invade really nice pasture ground. So now you got to spray more than you were spraying before. So the effects of this lasted. We had trees die 3 or 4 years after this drought that were attributable to the stress of the drought.
Yeah. I'm battling dead trees on all of my ranches right now, leased places and owned places alike, from the big freeze of 2021. They're just out rotting and falling.
Snowpocalypse.
So on the heels of this, like 2011 was really bad, but what I learned in 09 and 11 was I decided, because I was grass finishing cattle and grainfish cattle, they were coming from producer partners. Well, I lost in 2011, so I bought a set of heifers with my dad in 2012 and those cows in 2011, because you know what happened? All these guys I was buying their yearlings from, they sold off 60, 70, 80% of their cow herd. They weren't my producers. They weren't my co-producers. Yeah. So I decided to get back in the mother cow business. There went my mother cow business, get back in the mother cow business. I decided to get some geographical diversity. So I had a guy down at Ennis I was getting yearlings from. I had
south
a guy,
of Dallas.
Yeah, down south, halfway between, he was further south. He's kind of halfway between Houston and Dallas. And I had a guy that was out kind of west of Waurika, out southwestern Oklahoma. out that way, and then my home base up there in southeastern Oklahoma, trying to get some geographical diversity. And I didn't come up with that idea. I'd learned that from reading history. So in Texas, we have some big legacy ranches. Of course, all you watching TV now, y'all know about 4.6s. But we had the Matador out at Paducah.
That ranch did exist before Taylor Sheridan bought it.
It existed a whole long time before Taylor Sheridan ever came along. No disrespect, Taylor. Appreciate him keeping it together.
Yeah.
But you have Wagner, Pitchfork, Matador, Texas. I'm going this week to Matador, Montana. So Matador, Montana is a direct result. XIT, the Panhandle of Texas, that was sold to build the Capitol. There's XIT in Montana. So these legacy Texas ranches went north and had Wyoming, Montana, Idaho ranches. Some of them went out in the Colorado, New Mexico area as well. But you saw these ranches get geographical diversity due to droughts and blizzers.
Try to escape
from
some
both
of the
ends.
regionality
And so
of those
they
things.
did that because they had this breeding stock, because they went from raising Longhorns to Herefords and Hereford Angus crosses, and they didn't want to give up their 10 years of genetic base, so they could put on trains then and move their breeding base, at least keep some of their breeding herds together. And that's why you had the geographic diversity of some of these ranches. You see these legacy ranches in Texas that geographically diversified out. Well, that's a little hard for us to do now, but I do know a gentleman that what his specialty is helping relocate cows in a drought and find people to take them on a basically a daily fee to keep those cows. And we've seen where we've moved cows out of a drought. So you could, in 2011 here, if I could have found someone in that part of Missouri up there, even Arkansas, it's not too bad. If I could have sent them some cows, it'd been a whole lot cheaper. So normally right now, I'd keep your mother cow for $1.50 a day. That's kind of going rate to day care for a cow. But I could have paid $2 on especially these expensive cows now. So if I could have sent her somewhere for $2 a day, $1,000 a year, but my $3,000 bred cow that's going to kill for $1,250, just keep a $2,500 calf out of her right now, which even if that fell apart in a drought. So that's where weighing those economic decisions of buy hay. Well, she's old. She's 7, 8, 9 years old. I don't want to put a whole bunch of hay in her. So that's who usually goes first, is the old ones.
Yeah.
And we kind of back
bad disposition
up.
or cows.
That. Yeah. That's where the cows get their comeuppance. That's when 108's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, every guy that has cows right now, whether he has 4 or 4,000, he's got a short list.
Yeah.
If it gets tough, there's a short list. They're
kind of like the people you work with that you'd fire first.
That's that one.
Not
like
you personally, but
no, you met this. You show up late one more time, you're done, over. Right? So yeah, everybody has that, but it affects the industry. So then, and right now, so let's go to current. Let's look at what we're dealing with right now. Talking about Matador and Wyoming. There's I alluded to in a previous episode a few weeks ago. They're selling in Wyoming. You see up there, Wyoming, those of you that, it's the square state up there. See dark red in Colorado. The back basin of Colorado is extreme drought, pretty heavy drought up in a big part of Wyoming. And those are those green valleys that they get rain. They kind of have monsoon season. I don't know if you've ever been to Cheyenne Frontier Days, but it's known for getting a rain in the afternoon in July. It's known to get those after July showers. And that's not happening for those guys this year. And they're selling those cattle off now that would normally be hitting the market in September and would really be part of our meat supply for Christmas.
Yeah.
They'd be getting finished out and be part of our meat supply for the holiday run. Well, those cattle are going to get harvested sooner than that. And so that's going to affect maybe the price of beef in November. I could potentially see meat prices coming down in end of October, November, and then ratcheting way up in December.
Yeah.
Because of the supply, oversupply, undersupply. Because the cattle that are already in the pipeline, these are getting put in with them. So you could have a glut and then a shortage. So that's how these things affect. But they're selling, I was going to get the name of that sale barn. They're selling 9,000 head of cattle a week. They normally do 500 to 1,000 head of cattle a week this time of year. They're running Wednesday and Friday up there, running 9,000 head of cattle. They're trucking cattle out of that region back to the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma and southwestern Kansas to put them on feed and get them out of that drought region. So it affects things, but this isn't as bad as we've seen, but we're early into the year, and this, just like a cancer, these maps have been growing, and so it is going to affect beef and beef supply on a short term, but long term, as we keep talking about the least number of mother cows since World War II, short cow herd, not building the cow herd back like we normally would have. We're 14 years into a 10 to 12 year cycle, and it's not. This isn't helping.
No, I mean, for those of you that can't see the map, let's see
pull your car over,
upper tier. Like
look at the map.
Michigan, Ohio, some of the I states on over towards Nebraska and Kansas, and then the eastern side of North Dakota. Some of central Texas, that's about the only places on this map that aren't affected by drought right now. So a lot of people may be saying, well, the cow herd is small, and if cattle are really valuable, why don't we buy more cows? Because there's nowhere to put them. If you're in a cow-heavy part of the world, you're pretty well affected by this drought map. Now, sometimes droughts are regional, sometimes they're more national, but there's a reason this herd has remained small and will remain small, I think, for the foreseeable future. Now, El Nino is coming. I'm seeing some stuff that in the next couple of months we're going to start seeing effects of that. I saw a front page story on the AP website yesterday.
Going out was everybody in agricultural knows La Nina and El Nino. So explain the differences between these two weather patterns, please.
El Nino tends to be a warmer Pacific pattern. It tends to bring higher temperatures, but also higher rainfalls to some areas of the United States. A little bit more extreme weather than you would have on a so-called average year. La Nina is a cooler pattern in the Pacific with less rainfall and cooler temperatures. And we'll look at temperatures and rainfall here in just a minute to kind of give you guys a feel for that. But for those of you that can see the map, look on there and decide where you're going to roll the dice to put your new cow herd. And think about, too, that you don't just go put a cow herd in somewhere. It takes infrastructure. So you got to own that ground or be able to lease that ground. And Matt, those guys in Wyoming, why don't they just feed their calves at home? Why don't they finish their calves at home?
Well, they're out there in the prairie where there's nothing to feed them except that short grass that they have during the 3 months of summer when it rains. But I tell you what would be a great idea right now, Dusty. It looks dry out there in that Texas panhandle and western Oklahoma, and we've got rain down here. Let's go out there and buy us a bunch of cows and bring them back here. Why don't we do that? That'd be a good idea right now. Let's go buy some of those good mama cows, those black baldies out there from the panhandle, and bring them down here in this 36-inch rainfall country.
Buy them out of the mid-height prairie.
Well, that dog hunt.
Bluegrass prairie, and bring them down here to eat Bahia grass and Bermuda grass, right? Because that's primarily what we have these days. So what the old cowboys tell you, and they're pretty right about this, is you can ship cattle west, but you can't ship cattle east.
One-way street.
What they mean by that is a combination of dry matter. So the grasses, the further west you go, the drier the grasses tend to be. They don't carry nearly as much moisture to them. So you end up with an animal that has a smaller rumen that's more adapted to that country. And the grasses tend to have a little bit more nutrition per pound of dry matter.
So TDN, total adjustable nutrients, and dry matter. So years ago, we talked about Hawaii being in a drought, parts of Hawaii in a drought, parts of it rains 120 inches a year. And 120 inches a year and 15 inches of rain per year can only be about 20 miles apart. So the University of Hawaii had some grass-finished genetics they really wanted to get over here. They were giving prime 18-month-old Hereford Angus cross steers.
That's impressive.
And these were genetics that had been there since Captain Cook delivered some animals over there in the 1800s. So these were unmessed with genetics. And they're like, man, we just would really love to get these over there to have some of these genetics to try to grass finish. I was like, well, you guys are over there in 60 inches of rainfall a year in the Garden of Eden. They're like, yeah, what could you do over there in 30 inches a year? And I went, oh, yeah. Because in theory, the grass is nutritionally, on a dry matter basis, twice as nutritionally dense, meaning the cow has to eat half of it where it rains 30 inches a year versus 60 inches a year. Would that be a fair, broad brush, ceteris paribus,
pretty broad
my
brush,
favorite?
I'll allow it.
You'll allow that for the sake of this simplistic argument. So what we're saying is when we take a cow from somewhere where it rains 15 to 20 inches a year, her stomach is used to eating a high concentrate diet.
I think of it as a grocery cart.
Yes.
You can only bring so much food home from the interior of the grocery store. If you grab the little basket by the door there that's got the handles on it, you better be just buying for yourself for the day. If you want to buy for your family, you're going to get the grocery cart, maybe 2 grocery carts. But that grocery cart is analogous to her rumen. How much forage can she put away in a single day so that the bugs in the rumen can break that down over the next 24 hours?
I love that analogy. I'm going to take it one step farther. If you have to survive for an entire week on that little basket, you want to go fill that full of iceberg lettuce or ribeyes?
I was going to go for ice cream, but yeah. If you
Dairy guys, come on, we're having to help the beef guys out here. But
Yeah.
as far as nutritional density,
you want as much density as you can get.
right? And so that's when we're over here in this. You get over east of here. We're in North Texas. You go over into East Texas, and the 50, 60 inch rainfall year. That's iceberg lettuce. You get out west, that's ribeye, that's sirloin steak.
And cows do adapt over time. Their
They can,
their
but
rumen size changes, but it doesn't happen in a week or two.
She'll fall apart on you and miss a calf crop in the
Yeah.
process.
It's because they can be standing belly deep in grass if they're West Texas cows, and you don't do anything to acclimate them, and you don't do anything to supplement them. You take them and dump them out in pasture that's belly deep in East Texas, and they can literally starve to death.
Yeah,
Just
so-
because they can't fill themselves with enough calories to meet their maintenance demand just to keep their body functioning.
I just wanted to point that out as those
Yeah,
of you that
that's a
might
really
be
good
looking at the map thinking, well, golly, so forget money. Forget that we don't just have a couple $1 million laying around interest free to go buy cows, but just having a place to put them and then having the right place to put them, the right place to move them to and maintain them. This is not a simple
No, the
equation.
calculus
It's
on
not
it
a
is
simple.
And again, it goes back to that mental health aspect. You're trying to balance all that in your head. If it rained all the time, the right amount, not too much, just the Goldilocks kind of zone,
Yeah.
everything would be great, but you'd still be really stressed because you can't control the markets, you can't control feed costs, all that other kind of thing. But balance all that in your head and try to think about, Matt, when you bought those heifers in 2012, coming out of the 2011 drought, were heifers more expensive or less expensive than they were going into the drought?
I actually bought them to feed. So we bought those mother cows for a cow herd for the guy who had drought insurance. We brought these 3/8 Gelby 5/8 Angus heifers. I was going to kill them. I was going to grass finish them. And I was really looking into doing. I'd read where they were. I was exploring spading them.
Oh, spaying them, taking their ovaries out, so they wouldn't cycle.
Basically, so I was going to, because I thought that, I had this theory that I'd spayed my dog and she got really fat, and I thought, well, why not try it with heifers? And I'd read that the Canadians spay heifers.
We used to spay a lot of Mexican heifers when the border was open.
Turns out, as I did a deeper dive into that, it doesn't give you the same effect as castrating a male does. It doesn't work as well as I had in theory thought it might.
Might I recommend a beautiful product called MGA?
No, you may
heifers?
not recommend MGA. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, my cows don't do drugs.
It's not a drug. It's a medicated feed additive.
It's technology.
It is technology, and it works really well. But yeah, so if you had bought those heifers on the open market as breeding heifers, because heifers going into like 2011, you could have bought a decent heifer for, I don't know, $1,750, $1,500, $2,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah, not even now. I don't think then. No, back then.
But in 2012, what was a bred heifer worth? When you came out of the drought and it rained again and the pastures greened up and everybody wanted to buy heifers and supply and demand kicked in, those heifers were
remember 12 it was still that weird year.
Yeah, but it greened up a little bit.
Greened up a little bit.
Crazy.
But I think we're still probably $400 back at 18. I think probably $1,250 around in those things. We bought them. We bought them. We bought them for what they weighed up. But we took Oklahoma City prices.
You didn't buy them as breeding heifers.
I brought them. They were 7 weights, and we brought them for Oklahoma City 3% shrink. We gave them top of the market in Oklahoma City, and they delivered them to us.
But if you had bought those heifers, 4 breeding heifers,
if
you bought them late in the spring after it rained and it greened up and everybody had some hope,
because we didn't buy them. Everybody
wanted to restock.
They've been 1,800, 1,850 instead of 1,200, 1,250.
I saw a lot of heifers in that time go for $2,500, $3,500.
May have, yeah. I'm trying to remember. We may have bought those heifers in that winter before it greened up.
But my point being,
I think they may have been coming off of wheat.
Other than wanting to hold on to your genetics that you spend a lifetime building, the other reason people hold on for probably too long in a lot of these situations in a drought and don't sell their cows when they could have made more money selling them is that they know that when it's time to restock, there's less cattle in the country. I meant to say this earlier. In 2011, just in the year of 2011, we lost almost 25% of the cow herd in the state of Texas. Gone. They didn't go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. They went to McDonald's and left in a Happy Meal. Some of them left the state. The great majority of them went to be killer cows.
And so then on the heels of that, because talk about my dad, we had a big, disagreement, not too bad, but about working his cattle, about, weaning them on the way to the sale barn, not castrating them, not doing anything, just pulling them and sending them. And I think when did we peak out in there? 13, 14,
on right the prices?
In there? And I'll never forget, he showed me a check from Oklahoma City, and those cutting bulls brought $1,800 to $2,200 a head for big old cutting bulls. And he said, why in the world would I ever work one, cut one? Why would I do anything when they'll bring that? And I said, well, why don't you make a copy of that and frame it? Because we'll probably never see that again. And it took a while. We're back.
This is why you don't have a job on Wall Street.
I was right for 12 years.
In a row.
I was right till I was wrong.
I saw a set of, on Twitter, I think it's Hal Smith, that's a cattle buyer out of OKC West. He posted a set of about 7 or 8 head, and they look like a Marty Robbins song. There weren't 2 steers in there that matched. They weighed 986 pounds, and they bought $3, which is an astonishing amount of money.
Wow.
An astonishing amount of money. I mean, that just shows you, again, we could keep going back to the small cow herd and just how dear these animals are. Same thing after a drought, especially a big drought in a big cattle producing region, cattle get really expensive. And I think if you looked at retail beef prices in end of 11, early 12, 13.
For sure.
Into 14, that was really reflected in those beef prices.
And we never really, we talk about things we didn't recover from, 1964, 1976, peak numbers that we've never gone back to. Probably 2010, 2011 were peak numbers we've never gone back to.
Yeah.
I don't think we've probably ever exceeded mother cow numbers of that.
There are spikes in there like you talked about in the 70s. Mm-hmm. It recovers, but not back to where it was. I don't think it
probably ever recovered back.
We'll see that again.
Yeah. But right now there's probably a lot of people, thinking about getting out of the corn business and planting some grass, getting in the cow business. But the prices, they kind of helped us get prices up because price of beef was really pretty cheap. I mean, when I started selling beef at the farmer's market, ground beef was $3 to $3.50 a pound at the grocery store, and I was $4.50 to $5 a pound for local, all-natural, grass-fed beef.
You didn't catch any hell about that price, did you?
Oh, I mean, you're like, now you'd be like, only $5 a pound. Like, I was 1.5 times as expensive as what they get at the grocery store for, and you look at it as a percentage. So it was tough, but I was what it took to produce it because of the inefficiencies. But now we look at where we're at, and consumers, I would like to say we're giving you more bad news. Your beef prices may not be getting any cheaper, and dadgum last episode talking about how efficient it is to produce a chicken. I hate to give up our market share to chicken, but that's.
But here's the deal:
be a sad reality.
When you look at the economics right now, I saw an economist present a month or so ago. There's really been no consumers voting with their pocketbooks are still telling us that beef is something that they'll buy at the price that it's at today. Now, I'm not telling you that farmers and ranchers have any sway on that. Mm-hmm. They are price askers and price takers. They're not price setters. And so, but the data would indicate, the grocery store data would indicate that we're not to the point where price has affected demand in a negative manner yet.
I'll give Paul Harvey credit talking about price takers. I don't know if I always heard his famous Paul Harvey quote. He may not have invented it. He said, farmers and ranchers are the only people who pay retail, sell wholesale, and pay the freight both directions.
Yeah. It's pretty true.
But I do appreciate the American consumer. I've been telling my friends in the cattle business, these prices are great as long as the American consumer will keep paying.
Yeah.
And I have been extremely nervous for 2 consecutive years now that the demand for beef would drastically fall off, and it hasn't yet. It hasn't. The data supports that the meat's still moving, and consumers, we appreciate that. Thank you for buying our beef, but also we're really at a point where we can get young people into agriculture. We can keep young people in agriculture. We might be able to buy new tires for the trailers next year. I mean, it's that good. We're not going to get a new trailer yet, but we're going to get new tires.
Yeah.
So these prices really are a point where we can start to reinvest in our infrastructure and maybe take a breath. So I'm really proud for our cow-calf guys. My heart still breaks for the cotton guys, and they're just nothing for cotton and corn. You know, the corn guys they need a little help there, but
several years of it being a rough go for them.
Yeah, so it's I would recommend planting less acres, but well, I saw the President of the American Corn Association this year. He figured it out. They need to increase their acreage by 10% in the next 2 years, and that'll fix this.
One of my favorite Aggie jokes.
What school did he go to?
Aggies, I love you guys, but there's these 2 Aggies in College Station. Over the summer, they decide they're going to go to the Rio Grande Valley and buy watermelons and bring them back up there and sell them. And so they go down there and buy them for 50 cents a piece, and they bring them back and they sell them for 50 cents a piece. And they make about 10 trips. The sharper one looks at the one that's not quite as sharp, and he said, I've been figuring on this, and I think we need a bigger truck.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a future episode for us. Agriculture's solution for low prices is to make more of whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're starting to get out of that habit in certain markets. I think you're a beautiful, I don't say you're beautiful very often. I think you are a beautiful example of somebody who has gone and looked for the opportunities in the marketplace and diversified his operation. You know, your family's got pecans, you've got Local Yokel, you've got the burger joint, you got the meat market. We got this now. We're raking in billions on this deal.
This thing is making dollars per month right here.
So I think more people are looking in that direction, but all too often agriculture's a race to the bottom to see how much we can produce for the least amount of money.
And since 1980, the American consumer has largely been the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, that's why we have the most wholesome and least expensive food supply in the entire world.
Less than 10% of your disposable income. So we're just asking you to hang in there for 10, 11, 12% and keep sticking with us as we'll let these guys make a living. We know things are tough for you. But, just don't get the new iPhone and buy some beef. Don't get a Carmelada mocha latte. If you just cut back on one cappuccino a week, you could buy beef for your family.
Empty calories versus nutritious calories.
I'm telling you, we should. So one thing I've got a video on. We should do Mr. Nutritionist. You'd love this.
It's Dr. Nutritionist.
I'm sorry, Dr. Nutritionist is what's in a pound of ground beef versus in those sugary drinks, and the nutritional value of those sugary drinks. And it's really fun to take the sodas and the drinks and then put the actual sugar as a percentage.
Pile it up on the table.
Weigh it. We'll put it in the cup and then pick it up. And there's nothing in there but granulated sugar and go, ooh, that's a lot of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. So that's a fun one. We can have more visual cues, even though we're podcast, 95% of people are listening to us. Well,
I'll get my lab coat out. We'll have a Mr. Wizard thing.
We'll get it, but it's really fun to let you see what you're getting and how to better invest we really do. We want people to make better protein decisions, better food decisions, and invest in your family's health better. I think you and I genuinely, from day one of talking about this, we really want what's best for American farmers and ranchers, and we want what's best for the American consumer's health. And a lot of things going on with this country doesn't have anything to do with the red meat that we're producing, or even the chicken or the pork that those guys are producing. It's those other products we're picking on with the dyes and the sugars that are really a large part of our problem. And other than a few sugarcane guys and some sugar beet guys, we're not responsible for too much of that. So please buy high quality proteins and support your American farmers and ranchers and buy the good stuff. We'll keep producing it for you if you ask for it, and
ask with your dollars.
Pay for it.
Yeah.
Ask for it and pay for it. But it's drought. Drought is a deal that affects us, and it indirectly and then eventually directly affects you, the consumer. And I hope you guys have learned something this week about how drought affects your food supply, whether that's cow-calf operation producing a feeder calf to go into a feed yard to be fed and be beef on your table, grain for the chickens and the pigs, or even your kale for your kale salad.
One last recommendation, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before. If you really want to get an in-depth understanding of what drought, how it affects people and animals, Elmer Kelton wrote a fabulous book about the 1950s drought in Texas called The Time It Never Rained. It's the best book you'll only read once, because it'll break your heart. I guarantee it'll break your heart if you got one to break. But if you really want to understand what a drought can do to somebody and have a better feel for what people in agriculture go through, go buy Elmer's book. He's been dead for a few years now, but what an outstanding writer to put those feelings on the paper and help people understand that.
Well, I've got 60 hours of driving to do in the next week, so maybe I'll see if there's an audio version of that.
Get you a box Kleenex to take with you.
It's a long way to Dillon, Montana, and back from McKinney, Texas.
I know a good podcast you can listen to.
Yeah, I could want to listen to. You could binge listen to this podcast all the way there. My kids, they like to listen. My wife does not. My kids, they like to listen.
They get enough of us.
Yeah, it's dry. Let's wet our whistle here with another bourbon of the week, and this one is pretty special to me. This is Widow Jane. So interestingly, I've poured us here, Dusty. I've poured us mostly Kentucky bourbons. We've had the one Texas bourbon. This is out of the heart of all bourbon country, Hoboken, New Jersey, and Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
traditional home of bourbon.
So traditional home. So what this is, these are some guys that grew up in upstate New York, and there was it's called Widow Jane. And this was first gifted to me by a gentleman named Tim Davis. And this is probably the most aesthetically pleasing to your nose bourbon that there is. It smells wonderful.
It doesn't smell as good as Scotch, but it's not bad.
It's like a Band-Aid. So this wonderful gentleman named Tim Davis that got me into bourbon and gave me many wonderful bourbons before he passed away, right before I opened the restaurant. He gave me this Widow Jane, and this is, you think all those iconic buildings in New York City, the library and the State House, all those limestone columns. Well, those came from this quarry in mid-state New York, and the guy was kind of a jackwagon. He was a jerk. Nobody really liked him, and thankfully for the town, he died at a young age and left everything to his beloved Widow Jane, who was a child bride, and she was a sweetheart. Everyone loved her. So it's the Widow Jane Mine and Quarry up there. And it's this beautiful aqua blue water. And these guys thought, as they got into bourbon, they thought, what if we use the bourbon? Like, what if we finished the bourbon with water from that quarry? So that's what they do, and that's what this is. So special here. Salute to the corn farmers for making corn so we can have bourbon, and Salute to our farmers and ranchers. Thank you to American consumers for choosing American agricultural products. Thank you for shopping at the grocery store, spending your dollars on American products. We appreciate that. Buy American, keep American farmers and ranchers in business. American consumers, we are depending on you to make good buying choices. Farmers and ranchers, keep doing what you're doing. I believe in you. America trusts you, and the world's counting on you. Brad Good from a one stoplight town going to take us out. And I grew up, we didn't even have a stoplight in my town. Did y'all have a stoplight?
I think they installed one recently with the Dollar General.
Boom. With the Dollar General. Oh, man. Well, thanks to everybody for listening. Y'all go support Brad Good out there as well when you're supporting American farmers and ranchers. We'll see y'all next week for another episode of The Fence Line. Have a great week, guys.
Thanks, folks.